No.
Oh, I thought you were also an alumni.
Okay.
That's how we met with William.
Okay. I can see you've gone live on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was I on YouTube?
Sorry?
Was I on YouTube?
I'm saying I can see you have gone live on YouTube.
Ah, okay. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Happy Mashujaa.
Happy Mashujaa. Let's wait for some more people to join before we start. Hi, Ruth. Hi, Christine. Good to see you or to hear from you. Good to see you. So before the others join, I think we can do a little trivia, yeah? Let's start before the others, as the others continue joining. Let's see. What geometric shape is generally used for stop signs? What geometric shape is generally used for stop signs? What geometric shape is generally used for stop signs?
It's a triangle.
Yeah, is it a triangle? Yeah, by the way, it's a triangle. But here they're saying it's an octagon.
Actually, it could be. Yeah.
Could be an octagon, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a stop sign, I think, is for crossing or in caution. But Walinda driving. And the next one, how many colors are there in a rainbow? This one is easy.
7.
Yes, it's easy, Sarah.
7.
Yeah, it's true, there's 7. This is a true or false question. The color orange is named after the fruit. Is it true or false? Is it true or false? The color orange is named after.
True.
Yeah, it's true. Hey, Sarah, today on fire. Ulifanya homework.
Yes.
This is also a true or false question. On average, at least one person is killed by a drunk driver in the United States every hour. That's actually very alarming. On average, at least one person is killed by a drunk driver in the United States hour.
True.
Yeah, it's actually true. That's alarming. It's a very mini statistic. Let's see one more and then we can start. We'll just proceed without them. When one is envious of somebody, they are said to be what color? When someone is envious, they're said to be what color?
Red.
Red is anger. You're dashed with envy. That was such a
Black.
green.
Oh, green.
Oh.
Yeah, it's green, Ruth, you're correct.
It doesn't make sense anyway.
Yeah. One last one. True or false? An eggplant is a vegetable.
True.
False. It's a fruit, apparently.
Why? It's a fruit.
Okay, I don't know if it's a fruit, but it's false. It's not a vegetable.
Why is it called a plant?
An eggplant.
But eggplant is the one that is purple in color, right?
Yeah.
Is it that one?
Let's see the reason why. Yeah.
The one that they call brinjal. I don't know. In other terms.
I think in biringanya.
Biringanya. Yeah, brinjal. Biringanya, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see what they're saying about it. Apparently it's not a fruit. It's according to eggplants, also known as aubergines, belong to the nightshade family of plants and are used in many different dishes. And they're technically a fruit as they grow from a flowering plant and contain seeds. So they're a fruit.
But it's not edible. Like you can't eat it raw.
Yeah.
And how is it a fruit?
I think because it comes from how they're classifying it as a fruit, because it grows from a flowering plant and it has seeds. Even a tomato, I think, is a fruit. Okay, I think we can start. So hi, everyone. My name is Beatrice Wangari. I'm the founder and team lead at LAL Homeschool Center, a virtual learning hub that is focused on bridging the gap in special education through smaller, interactive, inclusive classrooms at the comfort of your home, as well as equipping home-based learners with tools they require to support home-based learning. And I'm also your host for tonight and every Wednesday on the Kurasa What's All About Wednesdays. So today on What's All About Wednesday, we're going to be anatomizing staff bonding with the help of a very lovely lady, Zipporah Kuria. She's in the building. We're going to be talking about what staff bonding is, why it's important, and how we can implement that in our various institutions, as well as, is it effective? Is it something that every institution should implement? And we're going to do this by the help of, as I mentioned earlier, Zipporah Kuria, who is a biblical entrepreneur and currently the co-founder and MD of Oram Consultants. She's also a HR and risk, which is a HR and risk advisory firm. And she is a certified and licensed HR practitioner, a mentor, motivational speaker, and a leader in church. So Zipporah, karibu sana. You can unmute your mic.
Thank you, Beatrice, and good evening. Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here this evening.
Yeah, so Zipporah, tell us a little bit about yourself, the story behind Oram, and how you came to be a HR practitioner.
Wow, Beatrice, you didn't tell me you're going to put me on the spot, but I'm happy to tell my story. And thank you. Let me start by saying, like Beatrice said, I'm a biblical entrepreneur, and that means I run our business using the Word of God. A bit about myself. I'm born again. I love the Lord. I am married to one husband, one man. I have 3 wonderful children. And besides that, what else am I? I am a leader and I'm also an HR practitioner, like Beatrice has mentioned. The story behind Oram Consultants is a very long story. But I would say before Aurum Consultants began, we went through a wilderness journey, myself and my husband. And it was a long journey before we realized we had skills that we could use to be able to bring a difference at the workplace. And how Aurum began after going through the wilderness journey, partly my husband lost his job and he was fired very unfairly. And we had choices. We had a choice to either move to the courts, or we had a choice to use that pain and use it to help other employers so that they will not do the same to other people. So basically that is the genesis of Aurum Consultants. We started the business small, initially to put food on the table for our young family. But as we went along, we realized it was more than that, and God wanted us to make an impact to the people we interact with every day, to the SMEs we work with every day, and help them have very clear processes, have a good way of managing their teams and managing their businesses successfully. So in a nutshell, that's the story of Aurum Consultants. We've been in operation since 2015, and we are growing. When we started, it was just me initially. Currently, we have a team of about 16. So that has been the journey of Aurum Consultants for the last 6-7 years.
Wow, we love stories that grow from experiences, which makes your work more impactful, because if it has affected you on a personal level, the more passion you have in it and the more you understand how you're going to the markets, that is, and who you're trying to reach through your program. So what is the meaning of staff bonding? Like, what is that? What is team bonding? How would you define team bonding as?
When I was thinking about that word, Beatrice, a couple of things came to mind, and you can look at team bonding from a place of empowering employees, or from a place of you have invested in an employee and you want to bond them. But I think today we can dwell on the place of how do we embolden an employee from a place of empowering, because emboldening means we are empowering the employees. And I would want to look at this from a place of, the way you look at TQM, total quality management for your organization. And in this case for schools, when you're looking at how you're managing the institution, the total, picture, how are you managing this? And you cannot leave the aspect of the employee. And one of the questions I want us to think about tonight, even as we have this discussion, is your team pulling with you or against you? Because if your team is not pulling with you, it's pulling against you. And of course, that brings a bit of a challenge when we're managing our teams. And we have to understand, when we have employees, we have a relationship with them. We have a relationship that is an employee-employer relationship. But we also need to understand that these relationships are the currency of the workplace. Without the employee, it's going to be very difficult for you to actually offer your services to the customer. So you need these relationships, and you need to understand the value of these relationships you have. So I would say, as a leader, your role is to make sure you're creating the big picture of the organization, the employees understanding what this big picture is, and you're painting into them in a way that they understand. You are helping them to buy into your vision so that they can be able to follow you. And as a leader, you need people to follow you, because you cannot start empowering people who don't believe in you. People will need to believe in you so that you can be able to embolden them, you can be able to empower them. And like I've said, the word emboldening has many meanings. You can look at it from a place of encouraging. You can look at it from a place of strengthening. You can look at it from a place of motivating. How you cheering your team members, how you motivating them. And once you understand how to do that, then you will be at a better place to understand. So I would say the word, bonding would translate to how are we empowering our employees? How are we motivating them? How are we encouraging them to be the best they can be? When you're looking at employees, a lot of times there's always that place of fear, and they will only do what is within the space of or the sphere of safety. When they feel they will step into an area where they will be challenged, or an area where they feel they will get into a challenge, employees naturally, or even human beings, they have a tendency of stepping back. So as leaders, we need to be at that place of being able to encourage and push them to do something more, you know, to be able to bring out the best in them. So I would actually define the word, you know, bonding in there's so many words, Beatrice.
Thank you so much, CP. There's something you said about, is your team pulling with you or against you? And this speaks volumes, especially when you are trying to establish something from the ground up. You have to be able to understand the work dynamic in your own workforce. Like, what was I lacking where I was working that I want to improve in this situation? And how can I make my employees feel comfortable and stuff like that? So how do you get to understand everyone's unique work experience, or how their deliverables? Like, how do you understand this worker works best like this, and how do you incorporate all those things into one, into several activities that benefits all of them? Like, how do you mock up a team bonding session? Like, could you just take us through the process?
So first of all, I would think you need to look at the different people you have engaged, and you have to realize we come from our backgrounds carrying a lot of other issues with baggage and all that kind of a thing. And you have to look at it probably from a place of looking at the personality of the people you're working with, perhaps doing a personality test and getting to understand the different personalities of the people you're working with. But even before you get there, also the way you bring in the people to your organization, the way you recruit them, you need to understand, what kind of people am I bringing in? What kind of people do I need to be able to deliver my services to our customers? And once you understand that and you start bringing the people with the qualities, with the values that marry with the organization, then you start realizing you're aligning your people with the goals of the business. But other than that, it's also important to make sure you're setting clear your systems, you're setting clear the expectations, you're making sure they understand their job descriptions, so there's no ambiguity in terms of what you're expecting of them to do. And that creates an environment or a culture where people actually are very clear about expectations. Because you have to remember, team building is not an event. Team building is it's a way of life. It's the way we communicate with each other. It's the way we do life at work with each other. It's the way we support each other departmentally. How my department depends on the other one to be able to deliver the services. So we can't look at it from a place of just bringing the team together and encouraging them, to work together in unity or doing activities that will bring team building. But we have to look at it from a bigger perspective and see what are the kind of people we're bringing? What values do we espouse? Do they marry with their own values? What systems have we put in place? What environment are we creating that will create a space where people will be able to give their best? People will be able to give feedback, even to you as a leader. A lot of times, and I'm not so sure the level of leadership we are dealing with here today, I don't know in terms of the people we are bringing in, are we clear what we need? I'm assuming we are dealing with directors. Maybe you can help me, Beatrice, so that I can be able to contextualize the conversation. So the people we are bringing on board, we need to understand our own organization. And a lot of times I've seen challenges from us as directors, where we are actually also a little bit lost. We don't understand where we are taking the business. Yes, we have an idea, but there's no clarity. And what happens when we bring in people, we actually bring them into a place of confusion, into a place where we are expecting so much, but we have not created a clear path where they are able to excel. So I would say the environment we create is so critical that would help that bonding for employees, will help employees be able to communicate, be able to give feedback, be able to thrive, and be able to actually do what they need to do for you, and be able to follow your vision. And remember what I said earlier, as a leader, you need to be at a place where people want to follow you, and you can't force people to follow you. And the question we need to ask ourselves tonight is, can my people follow me even if I did not have the position I have today as a director? Would they still want to follow me? And why would they want to follow me? And I think that would bring a lot of cohesion, that will bring a lot of bonding if we understand that element of having to deal with our people.
Thank you so much. So it's the holistic approach from the recruiting. Okay, not even before the recruiting, like this position requires someone who is, so it has these specific qualities, the professional qualities, obviously, and also their work ethic, their beliefs, their moral values, all those things. And then as you're recruiting, you need to check these things. And there's a personality test you mentioned. Most, I think now that most job recruiters are trying to include it into their interviews, but before that they never used to, because you find, especially in education areas, you find most teachers, we've seen so many cases on the news, teachers beating kids so badly, kids get injured, some of them even die, succumb to the injuries. And I feel like as an employer or as a director or as a HR, you also need to look in also not just the academic qualifications or they worked at this company or this company. We also need to look, is this person mentally capable of delivering what we require them to do? Are they able to take up the tasks with a sane mind, and to be, at least, especially in a school, they need to be very good with kids. And I feel like a lot of times that has been overlooked in schools, which is so sad, because when you're dealing with children, you have to be very kind, very patient, very kid-like, so to speak. Sure. So apart from personality tests, say if I'm trying to hire teachers for my school, apart from the professional side, what other things should I look at?
Actually, other than professional, and I think professional is good, but one of the important things you must look at when you're doing recruitment is the attitude. And if you remember earlier, I've talked about the values this person has. And by engaging, I've seen a lot of times, and it's normal to do interviews from a very structured perspective. Yeah. But with my experience, what I've noted is when you're actually very structured, sometimes we also tend to miss out a lot of things that you could have picked out from a candidate. For instance, you would be able to pick out things like body language, the tone of voice, how they're communicating, how they're responding to different questions. And it's important for you to engage them from a place where you can be able to have a very normal conversation that is not tense, that you can be able to actually understand this kind of a person you're dealing with. Other than that, I've of course mentioned you need to look at their personality. You need to also look at their backgrounds. You need to understand the reason, why they have left where they left. A lot of times we only take their word for it, and we don't dig deeper to understand, was that really the real issue? So there's a lot of things that we need to do as employers, as school directors, to be able to understand this person we are actually engaging. What kind of a person are they? Again, when we are giving them to these children, what kind of an experience do they have handling minors? Maybe the experience they have is handling teenagers, and we give them to kindergarten children. And the truth is they will not be able to handle, because these are children who are at different ages. And you need to be able to actually make that judgment that this employee might be good at what they do, but they might not be able to handle a certain age of children because they don't have any experience or any exposure towards that. So you need to look at this person you're bringing on board in totality, not just from qualifications perspective. Again, the other sad thing about qualifications, and we all know this in this country, where we all cheat our way to university level. And we come out with papers that are very good. This morning I was watching a clip where Kenyans, are becoming notorious of bringing exams even for students in the US. And just tells you the kind of a culture we have, which is a very bad culture of cheating through our education, and we come with good papers and we present good papers and we engage this person based on their papers. That should never be the only basis of engaging this person. You must be able to look at their what do you call the soft skills, you know, from a personal level, in terms of customer service, in terms of personal relations, in terms of their own presentation, you know, how are they talking to you? How would they even talk to a minor? And even, you know, come up with questions that are relatable in terms of, you know, the level of engagement you want to engage them, and see how they respond to that. Let them give you practical examples, you know, based on what you're trying to achieve. If they are saying they have dealt with children, you know, get them to give you really practical examples and get to see, because you can be able to tell if you're monitoring their body language, you can be able to tell whether this person is actually cooking a story or they're telling you something that is authentic. So I think we need to be very alert when we are recruiting, when we are looking at these people. The other thing, of course, I would say sometimes, unfortunately, we don't always get it right, because sometimes the people will put a face into it, and of course, they end up in the system. But, you know, just creating that system of bringing a wholesome person who can be able to deliver and who can be able to create that environment we are looking at. Because if you bring a bad person, then they bring into the organization a culture that is not good. And what does that do? It actually affects our bonding, and now we are bonding with other employees. We start having organizational politics. We start having, you know, the push and pull, and people start pulling towards a different direction instead of pulling with you. So again, looking at all these different things, I think will be very helpful.
Thank you so much for that. Also, when we talk about holistic approach, obviously we've seen most of the positives about, not most, we've seen the most important thing is to have this holistic support of your staff, so that you can be able to, you know, like if you can be able to fully impact your work, be it in any field. You require that your staff members are working with you and are not feeling like you had mentioned earlier, when they feel there's going to be tension or they're going to be stressed too much, are going to pull back from that job. And actually, you find even online, you see so many people posting that they are at work, but they are busy searching for another job at the same time using your Wi-Fi. So we see the pros. What are the cons or concerns to think about when we talk about staff bonding?
You know, even before I think about those concerns, there are reasons employees will come and they get there and they realize, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And the question we need to ask ourselves as business people is it the employee who has a problem, or is it the environment we have created or not created that is making them feel so uncomfortable being here? Is it our way of working that is making these people want to, you know, to leave and use our resources? Instead of using those resources to serve our customer, they use those resources to actually try and look for alternative employment. And one of the things I would say, and this is very critical in terms of just, you know, emboldening employees and bonding employees, creating what I call a government system in your organization. And when I'm talking about a government system in your organization, you know, I'm looking at, you know, we need to create a very clear structure. You know, we need to be able to identify and be able to be very clear where this business is going and download that to our leaders, because these are our leaders who will actually drive our agenda with the other employees. So creating that structure of governance in our organization, that government structure, that reporting structure that is so clear, I think that is very important. This is one area I've realized causes a lot of chaos in an organization, when employees are not clear about who they're reporting to. And they get instructions from different people at the top, left, right, and center. And at some point, they don't know who to respond to. And unfortunately, sometimes when they don't respond to the other person, they end up getting in trouble. So you can see in such a situation, it's actually not the employee who has a problem. It's our own systems, it's our own structures that has a problem, okay? The other thing I would say is create opportunities for them to learn and give them new responsibilities, give them new challenges, allow them to make mistakes. Again, a big challenge with us business executives, where we don't want to allow people to make mistakes. The moment they make a small mistake, we are almost firing them, or we are actually firing them. But the truth is, look at yourself, where you've come from. You have gotten to where you are because someone has given you an opportunity, someone has believed in you, someone has allowed you to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes and be able to become better. Of course, you need to create a system where you know they're not going to make mistakes that are going to be so costly to the organization. And you need to be very clear how you delegate responsibility, not to give too much responsibility someone can't handle, but gives responsibility, you know, step by step in a way that develops that person. When you start giving them those opportunities, then they will stop looking for jobs because you're giving them a challenge. I've sat in interviews and you'll ask a candidate, why do you want to leave your current employer? And they will tell you, I'm looking for a new challenge. And you're wondering where this person is working. Do you want to tell me there are no challenges? Do you want to tell me there are no opportunities for growth? So again, you can see it's a challenge of our own creation where we don't create these opportunities for them, okay? Again, important to train our staff. And when we train our staff, we need to have a clear plan. And sometimes when you train, you might not train everyone, depending on the size of your organization, because you might have a big organization and training is a very costly budget. But you can create a system where you have trainer for trainers you will train, and they can transfer that knowledge to other employees. And you need to make sure there's a system of accountability. You know, how are we making sure people are accountable? How are we creating what we call work plans? How are we making sure people are giving us reports? How are we making sure we are doing performance reviews? How are we doing our one-on-ones with our direct reviews? You know, and sometimes we actually don't do these things, but we expect a lot from our people. And what happens when they don't deliver? We blame them. And as executives, sometimes we remove ourselves from the equation. I always tell my clients and, you know, people when I'm training, and especially leaders, everything rises and falls on leadership. So when you see your department or the organization is failing, you need to look at yourself as a leader. You need to see where the cracks are in terms of your leadership and see what is not working. Because before you blame the people working under you, you need to see what it is that you're not doing right, or what it is you're doing that is creating a challenge. As a leader, you have to inspire. And again, when you are emboldening employees, inspiring is so critical, because if you don't inspire, you will not empower them. Remember what I said earlier, that employees will only take safe steps. When they realize that I will get into trouble, they would rather take a step back and wait for you to give instructions. But when you create an environment where they're able to actually innovate, they're able to step out and do something that will be beneficial to the organization, then you will find actually they're bringing more value to you into the business. So I think there's a lot we can talk about this, Beatrice, in terms of what we can do. The other thing I'm remembering is sometimes we become the biggest impediment to, you know, our employee success. And what I normally tell executives, when you create those structures, when you give them clear guidelines of what is expected, get out of the way. Don't be the one who is the roadblock. Sometimes we create these roadblocks, and what happens? The employee gets frustrated. So we need to remove barriers. We need to make sure those hindrances are not there, so that we create an environment where the employee success is important. And when that employee success is important, they will give you value. They will serve you because they feel they are valued. Communicate information to your teams when that information is needed, and make sure you know you help them successfully carry out their responsibilities. Sometimes we don't give them the tools they need. Sometimes, you know, we will say do this, but we are also not giving them the tools they need to be able to deliver. So again, I want to throw this back to us. And, you know, today I attended a function. I was getting certified for the CHRP. And one of the speakers said this, and, you know, it caught my attention. And they said, it's no longer the employer who is the center of attention. It's the employee who is the center of attention. And if we don't put the employee as a center of attention, what happens? They get frustrated. They frustrate us, then the work environment becomes so toxic, And what we're trying to do, what we're trying to create in terms of creating a culture where people are bonding, where people are working together in one unity, where people are working together as a family. That environment is not there because we are all pulling towards different directions.
Thank you so much. First, congratulations on the certification.
Thank you.
There's something that you said that I resonate with very deeply. You find employers, as employers and as directors, we mostly look out for ourselves. We can be very selfish when it comes to the work environment because you feel it's my business, it's my company, I'm going to run it however I want. And also sometimes you find employers putting forth their interests first, like money and product, instead of looking out for the employee, such that, for example, if in a work scenario where you're told the customer is always right, this is your employee, right? Maybe the customer has insulted them and really demoralized them in their space of their work environment. But you as an employer, you ask them to apologize because for image purposes and also the notion that the customer is always right. So I find such things, especially in a work environment, can demoralize your other workers because it's a chain reaction. If you see this worker was treated badly, it also makes them become less creative, less innovative. So they just want to give you the bare minimum that you requested in the beginning when you were recruiting. So I deeply, deeply resonate with that. As directors, as employers, we should think of the sustainable method in keeping these workers. That's why you find one worker will have worked at a company for more than 20 years because of how well they are treated, because I don't think there's anyone who would stay in a toxic environment for that long and they're qualified. So that's very important. Thank you so much for giving us that practical example. So in your line of, in your company, Aram, what are some, you could just give us one or two examples of maybe a company you did team staff bonding for, maybe they were having issues or something like that, that we can really like resonate with and use in our own environment. Is there one instance that really stood out for you?
I think there's quite a number that I have had to help. And I would want to try and be as relevant as I can be in terms of just focusing on schools. But on the other hand, I would also want to say a workplace is a workplace, whether it's a school, whether it's an hospital, whether it's a shop, whatever it is, that teacher, that cleaner, they are still an employee. And I remember these situations where this one department that actually, you know, it was just chaotic. You know, people never used to agree. I mean, there was a lot of acrimony between team members, a lot of misunderstandings. And, you know, when I got to understand and got to engage this team to understand what are the real issues, I realized there were actually very petty issues and they were fighting amongst themselves. Of course, I had to use my professionalism to bring them to the place of understanding. Why are you here? What brought you to this place in the first place? Why are you in fighting against each other that work becomes so difficult to deliver and we can't move forward? And they actually started thinking by themselves and getting solutions by themselves. And it was interesting because actually for more than 3 years, we did not even have any disciplinary case in that department. And this was just because of a conversation that was happening. Again, most of the challenges I've seen Bitways is from a place where we don't have a proper system that is created. You have talked about sometimes directors, you know, we are the center of focus. The interest is about us. And when you say that, what I remembered is back in school when we were talking about the 4 Ps, I can't remember it was the 4 Ps of what, the 4 Ps of marketing. And, you know, we talked about, you know, the place, where's your business? We talked about the product, we talked about the price and people. And that means you actually can't do without people. So we need to create those systems where, you know, we are able to help employees bond. The other ways I've been able to help some of my clients, of course, is through trainings. And when I'm looking at trainings, sometimes we tend to look at the big trainings. We forget about the soft skills, the small mundane things we think what are obvious. Sometimes they are not that obvious as we think they are. Some of us are very exposed, and we forget sometimes we get people to our organizations who probably came from upcountry, went to campus or to college, don't have much exposure, and we bring them to the organization. So sometimes we need to create the environment where these people are able to thrive by exposing them, by creating systems where they are able to work within. And we need to be able to train them in those soft skills, like how do you communicate to your fellow employees? How do you communicate to the learners? Because the same way you communicate to an adult is not the same way you communicate to a learner. You know, you need to be able to bring yourself to their level and to be able to understand. You know, when there's a complaint that has been leveled against you by a child, for instance, how are you going to handle that? Are you going to retaliate? You know, what is the process of handling some of these issues that we are dealing with every day? So we need to create, training programs to start with. And I've been able to help some of our clients actually do that by training them on soft skills. Some of them, we actually put them as part of the induction program. When we are inducting what must be covered, and what must be covered is not just about the organization. It's about what are we expecting of you as an employee? How should you behave? How should you dress? What will make you get into trouble? And when you get into trouble, how are we going to handle this? So when we start creating these systems and we start helping the employee understand the why and the how, then you start realizing the challenges get minimized. So I have actually been able to work with quite a number of clients. Currently, we have a portfolio of about 9 schools we're working with, and we've been able to help all of them put some of these simple systems in place and create an environment where employees are able to bond, employees are able to give feedback, employees are able to raise their complaints, sometimes against the management. Sometimes as management, when an employee raises a complaint, we don't like it. But on the other hand, if they don't raise the complaint or if they don't voice it out, they will go and talk behind our backs. And what happens? We start having a bad culture happening right behind, our backs, right, under our nose, and we are not understanding what's happening in our own organization. So creating that system of accountability where employees are able to give feedback again is very critical.
There's something you mentioned about creating a system that works. So the reason I'm actually reiterating that is because, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of Kenyans have become very notorious in lying. And you might miss it because, we are human. You can't say, I've known this person because and an interview lasts at the most 45 minutes. So within 45 minutes, you can't say you disseminated what this person is all about and the kind of vibe they give off, if it's what you're looking for. And the systems that we establish in place as a company policy or as a company hiring process should be able to be revisited, I think, every few months, because as humans, we can tend to be very pretentious at times just to get what you want. And especially you find that in work environments, like you said, you find people will even start talking behind your back, but then when you're there, they're like, oh, she's the best boss I've ever had, blah, blah, blah. And then when you turn, they're like, hey, in fact, I'm even looking for somewhere else to work. So I think we should be able to be very fluid when we're making these systems, because at the same time, not everyone is the same. And these systems should be reflecting our values, not just our profits that we want to get at the end of the month or at the end of the year, or the targets we're trying to reach. They should be able to reflect our values as an entity. What are we trying to achieve through this company or through this learning institution? Who are we targeting? Are we working with children? Do all our workers adhere to the children policies? Do they all have clearance? Do they all have, are they lucid because people out here are crazy. We've seen that on the news, and it's so easy to miss. It's so easy to miss. But I feel like we've really delved into the process of holistic approach on staff bonding. And also just maybe you could give us an example of staff bonding activities or experiences that we could try, especially in an educational setup.
Examples?
Pardon?
Ask the question again.
I was saying if you could give us an example of maybe staff bonding activities that we could implement, or we could that have been very effective, especially in an educational setup, like a school, or maybe if you're outsourcing teachers, or yeah.
Let me say, again, going back to structures, because we can't run away from them or from that. One of the very good activities you can create is what I call work plans. And work plans, what happens with work plans is it keeps people accountable. People are able, you are able to interact, and I'm assuming that we have structures in our organization. So assuming you have 5 people reporting to you, and those 5 people have another 5 each probably reporting to them. We need to create a system where there are work plans that are happening every day, every week, and there's a way of checking in what people are doing. And what happens when those things are in place? There's constant communication, there's constant feedback happening. And that means we are actually working together as a team, and we are pulling towards the same direction. The other thing I always say is what we call one-on-one meetings, and especially with your direct report. When you have these one-on-one meetings, you know, you need to be very clear, what are you going to talk about? You need to understand what is happening in this person's department. What are the challenges they're experiencing? You know, what are the proposals they have? Let's not be quick to be the ones to give the solutions. If they come to you with challenges, send it back to them, or ask them, throw it back to them and ask them, what do you think should be the solution? What do you think we should be doing? So engage them in a way that they feel important, they feel they are part of the process, and you are not the one who is always giving the solutions. The other thing, of course, in practical ways, we can create an environment where we are bonding. Things like performance management, and this is also coming from, you know, the one-on-ones and all that, but have a structured way of doing things like performance management and performance reviews. And again, this will help employees know their areas of weakness, the areas they need to, you know, to grow in, and you know what steps they need to be they need to put in place to be able to become better. And this actually also creates a system of accountability, because if someone says, I need to go back to school as a part of their action plan, then in another couple of months, you need to be able to check back and say, by the way, have you actioned what we agreed on? Something else that is practical is trainings. Again, we can't run away from trainings, and we need to look at the needs for organization. What challenges are we experiencing? Because we need to create the training needs from the challenges we are experiencing on a day-to-day basis, and come up with training programs that are impactful, that make a difference. Let's not do trainings to tick a box. Let's do training because that training is going to help the organization move to the next level. I'm trying to think about something else. Of course, things like, you know, the fun things that you can do for staff, you know, recognition, you know, it helps with staff bonding. When I'm recognized, when I'm appreciated for what I'm doing, when it's not always about the mistakes I'm making, and someone is recognizing this and creating a very clear system of recognizing and appreciating staff is another practical way of making sure, you know, the staff bonding, you know, getting to celebrate milestones, getting to celebrate important days, they're like their birthdays, like, you know, their anniversaries. All those things are important to employees, and we need to put into perspective, how do we, you know, celebrate, you know, things like the other day we had a Teachers' Day, you know, how do we celebrate them? Do we put a budget in place where we know on Teachers' Day, we are going to do something specific for teachers that will help them understand they are valued in this organization? So there's a lot of activities. Actually, we can do some that are very simple. They are not costly. Some of them will require a budgetary allocation to it, but it's important to look at our organizations and see what will work and start with the low-hanging fruits and now work towards achieving what we want to achieve.
Great. So I'm seeing there's some questions on the chat feature. Let's address the questions. Sarah says, I tend to believe that some leaders are just result oriented. They don't want to know how, so long as the employees deliver. That's what I was mentioning the other time. So is it the fear of failure or fear to succeed? And how do you deal with grapevines as a leader? So we'll answer the first one. Is it the fear of failure or fear to succeed? What do you think?
It could be both. But I also think sometimes the way we look at, and I don't want to, make this too much of like the Christian perspective, but if you look at, when you look at your business and look at what you're trying to achieve, what is more important? Is it the money? Is it the service you're giving to the customer? What is the pain point you're solving for the customer? What is the value you're giving to the customer? Because if you only focus on what you want to achieve or how you want to succeed, you will miss a point. And you will actually fail in the process. If it's fear of failing again, and as a director, of course, you're looking at being too much result-oriented, again, you miss a point. Remember, people are not just a means to an end. People are not robots. People are supposed to come and actually partner with you to serve your vision and to deliver the results to your client. And as a leader, remember, you have to have your people wanting to follow you because of the kind of a leader you are. You have to show them the value you're adding for them to want to follow your vision. So I would say it could be both fear of failure or fear of success, but we also need to look at what is driving us and start looking at our people as an asset. Besides your product or the service you're offering, people are the next most important asset in the organization. And believe me or not, if you don't have those people, you will not deliver. You can have a wonderful product, and I know we are saying, yes, we are moving online, we are bringing robots and all these things to do. But remember, there has to be brains behind all these other things. There have to be people at some point. So we have to look at people as part of our assets in terms of how we are serving our customer, how we are serving our vision, and also be at a place where we are serving our employees and our employees are happy to work with us. There's something we call serve with love. And serving with love is, how are you serving your employees? Is it just about them serving you, or are you serving them? And serving them is not just about the salary you give them. I mean, the salary is the basic bare minimum you can give. These people, when they leave the organization, they need to be proud that I am very proud I work for this organization and this is a value I put in there while I was working, and I have no reservation recommending this organization to any client or to any of my friends or family members. So we need to look at it from a bigger perspective, but I would see sometimes it's the fear of both, and we need to deal with those fears.
Yeah. Sarah, I hope the first question was answered. I hope you're satisfied. Let's look at the second one. How do you deal with grapevines as a leader?
Wow. Grapevines are not necessarily bad, but they can be bad if, again, they become completely uncontrollable. Staff will always gossip. And as a boss, staff, by the way, they will always talk about you. Sometimes they will talk about you in a nice way. Sometimes they will talk about you in a bad way. And I think you need to be at the place of asking yourself, am I leading this organization in the best way possible? Am I putting the interest of every stakeholder in this organization, in the forefront? Am I being very clear how we are serving people? And sometimes this grapevine can be not damaging to the organization. Of course, if it's damaging to the organization, you need to be able to investigate. So don't just jump into conclusions because there's some gossip that has been brought to you. Get to dig deep to actually understand the core, to understand where is this coming from. Sometimes you also get to understand the weaknesses in your systems from the grapevine. So sometimes when this comes to your attention, you also have to be mature and wise enough to think, oh, actually, I know where the gaps are and I know what we need to do to close those gaps that are affecting our organization. So we can look at it from a positive perspective, but I think I would want to advise or caution us from jumping into conclusions when we hear information coming from, the grapevine, so that we don't make uninformed decisions. Because I've seen situations, by the way, where employees have even gotten fired because of something that came out of grapevine and there was no tangible evidence. Again, it can be very detrimental, it can be very challenging. So let's look at that from a positive angle first, get to understand where is this coming from, look at it from different angles, look at it and see, is it poking holes to our system? Whatever is happening, is it helping us realize that we need to strengthen the systems we have in place?
Yeah, kwa Kiswahili wanasema ufanye utafiti. Ufanye utafiti, uchunguze pande zote kabla ya kufanya maamuzi. So I see our discussion has gone. So it's been amazing. I think we have passed time by 4 minutes. Thank you so much, Zipporah, for allowing us to pick your brain on matters, staff bonding. We've learned so much that we can put in our organizations, that we can use as leaders, we can use as employees as well. We can be able to do some meaningful work and impactful work without having to go back and forth with anyone about anything. Another thing, I didn't give an introduction about Kurasa when we began, but thank you so much, Zipporah. I think for today, that's all. I'll just give a brief intro about Kurasa. So Kurasa is an innovative edtech solution that is a platform that as educators use to put forth their product. And currently it's used by over 250 plus teachers, over 1,000 parents. And in schools, we're also implementing Kurasa in schools, a system where, especially like, for example, in special needs departments, we have the online IEP program that we're running currently in Nairobi. So it's an innovative edtech solution to schools and to also parents and basically the stakeholders in the education sector. I think for now, that is all. I don't know, William, might you have anything to add? I think I'm Rudy. William? Don't think is that Khadija? Ruth?
Wonderful session. We learned a lot, very informative information for all of us who are working in different organizations and in schools. That was really helpful so that we can be able to learn and understand the other non-staff members of the organization. Asante sana.
Thank you so much, Khadija. As we say in Metis, Father together and doing small things with great love. So
definitely,
just try and incorporate that in your businesses and your environment. Alphonse, please, you can continue, you can proceed. Alphonse Wekesa, you can proceed if you have something to add. Can you hear me? You have your hand raised. If you have any HR needs, feel free, Kikuyu, to reach out to Zipporah. She's put her contacts there, and you can also join our WhatsApp community. You can just share your number on the chat feature and we'll add you in our WhatsApp community where you can tell us how you can give us feedback. You can you can tell us the topics you'd like to hear from Kurasa, or if you have a guest in mind, or even if you would like to be featured on Kurasa, you can just you can just chat with us on our community WhatsApp group, so we can be able to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much, guys, for today. It's been amazing. I see we've gone way past time, so I'll just end it there. And have a lovely evening. Thank you all for joining. It's always a pleasure. Always good to see all of you. And have a lovely evening. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Zipporah.